In mid-March 2024, I put nearly 5,000 kilometers on my vehicle over a 5-day period. I documented it. I put a few little videos out over the past few months with like sort of pieces of that trip. But this video here is kind of the master video for that whole trip. Why is now the right time to put this video out? Well, it's kind of an exciting time for my family. We got, you could say, a lot going on right now.
Can you see me?
Oh yeah.
Hard to miss me these days.
So my road trips for the year have been sort of dedicated to a couple of specific time periods, and right now is not one of them. I got a good wife and she understands everything that I'm trying to do, so we timed things out so that I would be there for her when she really needed me. So that meant going on a big long road trip in March, and we got another big family one planned together for a little later in the summer. And that's going to probably be even bigger than this March one, and hopefully as long as the weather cooperates at that point, which, you know, late summer, it usually can be pretty good around the island. That one should be really, really good as well. I'll tell you more about that in the future, but for now I'm going to focus on the trip that I took in March. The original plan when I actually got in the car and started this trip was to kind of go straight to Bonavista Vista. And it was a pretty overcast, windy, wet day. So I figured there's no point in rushing out there. I wasn't planning on staying in Bonavista Vista. I was just going to go out for a day trip, and my accommodations for the night were actually in Salvage. So I figured if it's not really worth getting out of the car, maybe I've been to Bonavista Vista so many times, I'll be going back to Bonavista Vista, of course. So I figured I just cut that out of this trip and just use my time a little bit more efficiently. Heading out that way, heading west on the island off of the Avalon, I figured, okay, well, I do need to eat, so I stopped in to Carbonear first. This is Charlottetown, Newfoundland, basically at the entrance to Terranova National Park if you're heading west from St. John's, or specifically Mount Pearl in my case. And I actually was trying to get over to Clayton's Wharf. It's a real place. It's actually just over, it's not these wharfs in front of me, and there's a big dock over there with the boat. It's not there, it's actually behind there. Because of the snow, it was actually pretty much impossible to get down there. I mean, I didn't wear the right footwear to walk around in deep snow. We had a big snowstorm almost a week ago now, and there's still a lot of snow around, so you actually can't get there. And that was why I wanted to come and do this video from Clayton's Wharf. But anyway, here I am in Charlottetown. I started this road trip. I'm going to be on the road basically for a week, going as far as Harbour Breton with a lot of stops along the way. My first stop was at in the town of Carbonear at a restaurant called Route 66 Diner. I stopped there for breakfast. It was a place that I had on my list to stop at for this other video that I'm working on, kind of like interesting, unique restaurants or coffee shops or gift shops, things like that, that I just wanted to make a video about for suggestions for anybody who is traveling around Newfoundland looking for places to go. So this place, Route 66, was on the list for that video. Highly recommend to go check that place out. So when I walk in the restaurant anyway, it was kind of early in the day, and I was greeted by someone sitting at a table, and there's a few other people with her, and they're having some kind of a meeting. The server came over and greeted me. They brought me to my table. I got up, I was looking for the server. I wanted to ask her if I could take a few shots around the restaurant, just, you know, some photos and videos, just to have it to prepare for that video that I'm talking about. And the lady that was sitting at the table that said hello when I walked in, I thought she was just being friendly, but she was actually Pauline, the owner of the place. Really, really sweet lady. But she was really nice. She was just talking to me and telling me about the restaurant and asking me what I do and why I'm shooting videos and things like that. Well, Pauline was telling me, you know, this is what they're working on, and then they have these people at the table. And she said, oh, Ray Johnson from Buddy What's His Name and the other fellas is sitting at a table. I look over, I'm like, oh, it is too. He was sitting back onto me, so I didn't realize it was him. And he's one of my heroes. Buddy What's His Name and the other fellas. One of my favorite Newfoundland groups, one of my favorite groups of all time. They have the funniest songs that you'll ever hear, but they have some of the sweetest, most like heart-wrenching songs that you can imagine as well. Such a well-balanced group that I don't think they'll ever get the credit that they deserve, but one of my favorites. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, like, I'm not gonna bother him. He's just sitting here having a meeting, but like, I'd love to just shake his hand, say hello. But I didn't, you know, didn't want to be that guy. So my breakfast came, I sat down, and then Pauline went back to her meeting. And they're talking about whatever they're talking about, and she leans over and she's like, well, he got his camera. She said, do you actually do videography work? And I'm like, well, yeah, I do, as a matter of fact. She's like, I wonder if you'd be available and interested in helping us with our things. So I was thinking about how I could actually go over and say hi to Ray Johnson, but he actually initiated the conversation himself, and he was asking me about videography work, what kind of stuff I could do, and what do I do and things.
Boys raise so tall.
We had a really nice conversation, and I got to actually have breakfast with him basically, and we talked about maybe doing some work together. It was amazing. This is Route 66 behind me. I'm actually supposed to be on my way to Bonavista Vista right now, but I decided to take a little detour instead and come check out Carbonear and go try this diner, because I've seen it before and just driving through Carbonear. And I just had the best breakfast I think I've ever had. Food was great, service was great, place is great, all that. But Ray Johnson from Buddy Wass's Name and the other fellas just happened to be inside, just having a meeting with the business owner, Pauline. A beautiful little spot in any case, but just they were so warm when they were talking to me. The whole time I ended up having breakfast with all of them. And just Ray Johnson, meeting him in person was such a treat. You never know what's going to happen when you go for breakfast around the bay. So as I shagged this one up, came all the way out here to Legs and in Heart's Content to try the chicken as I've been instructed to. The place is closed on Wednesdays. I've been here before for that fish and chips video that I put up a couple of weeks ago, and everybody that made a comment said something about coming back and trying the chicken. But anyway, Legs, I will be back to try your chicken soon. The fish and chips was perfect. I'm sure the chicken's going to be even better, so I will be back, I promise. All right. After all that, the sky started to clear up a little bit, so I figured I'm gonna get back on the highway and see how things go. And if it looks like it's clearing up a little bit, even though the forecast that day didn't show any kind of clearing, it might have been a pleasant surprise. So I figured it's worth actually taking that detour and shooting back up to Bonavista Vista like I originally planned. By the time I actually got into the peninsula, I was like on the road for at least a half an hour. The weather started to like deteriorate even worse than it started. So I figured I'm already up this far and I'll cut my losses, at least get up to Bonavista Vista and get that fish and chips that was on my list. I've been to Bonavista Vista a bunch of times, but I just had my first ever fish and chips here, and I found I'm pretty confident in saying the right place to do it. It's PK's. In a town like Bonavista Vista with a lot of really nice fancy restaurants, this place is doing just fine with the basic signage, the basic storefront, but they make a good fish and chips, I promise you that. The weather is just terrible, and I did want to stop in Port Union and do like an actual full video about Coker and the town. I wanted to get out at Champneys West and get some more footage of the cute little dock side that they have there, the brightly colored fishing stages. I'll get back there. It's always a place that I make sure I get back to Bonavista Vista. So I'm in Salvage right now, and I hope I'm saying that right. Please, anybody watching, if you know better, if I need to be corrected, let me know. Salvage, basically on the tip of the Eastport Peninsula. It's one of the most beautiful towns in the province of Newfoundland, and that's saying a lot, because you already know Newfoundland is Newfoundland. But this is one of those towns that like I didn't really know much about. I've always heard of it, and I knew where it was on a map even when I was younger for some reason, but I've never been here until last fall. It's the spring. You can't really tell it's spring, but trust me, it is spring here. And my first trip was about 4 or 5 months ago, and it was, you know, just basically everything that I was expecting it to be. Totally like lived up to the expectations. Really, really small town. There's not a whole lot here, like in terms of restaurants or anything like that, but you come for the sort of natural beauty. You don't really worry too much about the restaurants, in my opinion. And Eastport is like, it's like a little getaway spot for Newfoundlanders. At the beginning of the Eastport Peninsula, you got the Splash and Putt Park, you got Terra Nova National Park, towns like Traytown and Glovertown, where you got, like, as a kid, we would stay in Traytown and Glovertown and basically spend our summer getaway weekend at Splash and Putt. So we never actually came to Salvage. Maybe came in as far as Eastport, which is like just down the road, but never ever came here. This is one of those towns, I can't remember the publication, but recently was named one of the most beautiful towns in the country, maybe one of the most beautiful towns in the world. I didn't realize it was like that. I didn't realize it had a reputation for that type of place, but as you can see from the footage I'm putting in here, no doubt about it, like there's nothing really like this, even in Newfoundland. The history is deep, and I've been obsessed with getting around to explore Newfoundland to kind of learn more about my history, I guess, over the past 3 years or so. But I know nothing really about the history of Newfoundland before Europeans came, and I'm just sort of starting to dive into that a little bit. And this is one of those places where there is evidence of maritime archaic people that preceded, we know about the Beothuk, of course, but there was history before even the Beothuk here in Newfoundland. So this is a place where there is evidence of life 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. So really, really interesting place. Absolutely beautiful place. I'm here, like I said, it's spring, but there's some ice or snow or something falling on me now, but this is Newfoundland. If you don't know, now you know. It's one of those places that it is a gem in Newfoundland, but it's almost like you're cheating when you come here, because the road from the highway to get here is about maybe 20 minutes, whereas if you go to Bonavista, you got to go for about an hour and a half, or, you know, Fogo Island, or you know, any of the places that you might be thinking about as a getaway in Newfoundland. You usually have to travel for an hour, 2 hours from the Trans-Canada Highway to get there. I'm heading to Harbour Breton later today. That's a 2-hour drive from the highway. But this is like I said, you're cheating to get here because you only have to drive 20 minutes off the highway, and this is what you end up getting. Right? I am by no means an expert, and I'm definitely interested in learning more about it. But what I saw was like, wow, right? Like, I've been told by a few people, a lot of people talk about Salvage being one of the most beautiful places in the province, and I'm not going to argue with that. I just had lunch at Union East in the Gander Airport, and now I'm just sitting in the airport lounge that they redid a couple of years ago. Basically restored it to its old glory. They call this the Gander's slogan. It's still the crossroads of the world, and it's sort of apt because back in the early days of aviation, London to New York was the original sort of big destination to destination, and flights had to stop in Gander for refueling. It was the closest point to both areas, so it's a really, really important airport back in those days, and now they've redone everything up, make it look like it used to look. First escalator ever in Newfoundland. It's not operational now as far as I can tell, it just sort of looks like it's been restored. Big mural here on the wall. It really is beautiful. It's one of my favorite places in the province. Union East in the Gander Airport. It's pretty cool. They got a really nice menu. I ordered a salad and a veggie soup just to sort of counteract all the fish and chips I've been eating over the last 48 hours or so. But the menu looks really good. Lots of interesting items on the menu. The decor on the place is really nice to see to the other side as well, but where I'm sitting right now, it just looks really nice. They did a really good job with this place. Whole Gander Airport, over the last couple of years, they really put in a lot of effort to just turn it into something special. In terms of like the rooms and stuff, they just have the challenges with the flights and the air access to other locations and stuff, but they're trying really hard to improve that as well. But the actual places, the facilities inside the airport are really cool, and this restaurant is just one of the examples of that. Now, I didn't get to spend too much time in Conne River, but there's a lot that goes on there in the summertime. They have the famous powwow that I definitely want to get back and experience. But while I was there, I definitely made a point to try Loppy's Landing. And of course I got the fish and chips, because that's what I do when I'm traveling around Newfoundland. I try to get fish and chips wherever I am. And this was another, delicious plate. Everything about the fish and chips there was really good. The service was great, the food was great. The sun popped out from behind the clouds for the first time at that point for a couple of days. I didn't see any sun, so it was really nice. Felt like I was in the right place at the right time. And I highly recommend everybody to visit Conne River anyway, but if you're there, try Loppy's Landing for delicious fish and chips. This is probably my favorite place in Newfoundland that I've ever seen so far, and I was not expecting that to happen at all. I don't know what day of the week it is half the time without checking my phone, but I remember certain things from when I was 10, 11 years old that are just etched into my brain, and for whatever reason they're solid. I'll never forget them. In this particular memory, I was probably grade 5 or grade 6, and a new kid came to my elementary school. His name was Blair Med. Blair, I haven't seen you in 25 years or more. We weren't best buddies or anything, but you're always a nice guy. So if you're watching this, what are you at? Blair came to our school from the town of Harbour Breton. I didn't know anything about the place, didn't really know where it was, but I remember he was from that town. So I was a curious kid. I found a map of Newfoundland and sussed out where Harbour Breton was. It always just looked so far away, so hard to get to. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I finally made my first trip to the town, and man, oh man. I finally just got my breath. I drove down to Harbour Breton today for the first time in my life, not really knowing what to expect at all. And I've said this kind of about a few other places, but I have no problem saying it again. I am completely blown away. Completely, my breath has been taken. I'm in shock and all, whatever expression you want to use. I had no idea that Harbour Breton was like this. So I'm here for a couple of days. I'm going to get around and explore the whole area as well, not just the town of Harbour Breton. But unfortunately for me, I didn't take more time to do this because I set myself up in Harbour Breton as a home base, and I wanted to do all that exploring, but I really wish I gave myself a couple more days to just stay in the town. It's so much bigger than I realized. I was not ready for this. This is probably my favorite place in Newfoundland that I've ever seen so far, and I was not expecting that to happen at all. I recently posted a couple of videos, one about the town of Galtis, one about the town of Belorme. If you watch those videos, you can see that I'm, walking through the towns or standing up in certain places, talking about very specific things. And that was kind of by design. These are towns that are in the vicinity of Harbour Breton, not right next door to the town. You have to travel a little bit, but they're very close. But my vision of this trip was to travel to these two towns in particular with some things to talk about, and I wanted to actually talk about them while I was in the towns. Harbour Breton, it's the biggest town in the area, so it happened to be where I could find accommodations in the month of March. There's the Galtus Inn in the town of Galtus, but that's only seasonally operating. But Lorme's a very small town. There's about 350 people live there. Very small town. There was no accommodations available for the timing of this trip. Harbour Breton, there's maybe like 1,600 people live there. So I found a couple of options to pick for accommodations. Harbour Breton for me was a place that I was interested in, but it was mainly a home base for this trip where I was going to work my way around the whole Conegra Peninsula, get up around the Bay de Spirit towns, St. Albans, Con River, places like that. But as I've already mentioned, I really wish I had more time in the town of Harbour Breton because it was so amazing to me. I'm going to go back for sure as soon as I can. Maybe I'll wait until summer because I was there at late winter and it was amazing, but I'd like to see another side of it. And from all reports from anybody that I talk to about the town, they say like, wow, you got to come back in the summertime because it's fully alive. And my buddy Hutch told me that he went to a dart night at the Legion, which of course Hutch would do that, but he said it was one of the funnest things he's ever done. So that doesn't matter, I guess, which season you're there, but I'm definitely going to go back in the summer to experience another side of the place. I'm definitely going to be looking more into the town now for my next trip so I can create one of those types of videos where I'm walking around kind of sharing information about the town. I created a video a couple of weeks ago about some of my favorite lighthouses around the island, and I didn't know about the one in Harbour Breton, and I apparently, in hindsight, I was very close to the lighthouse. I wasn't paying attention to the signage, and I never turned the corner to make my way towards it. So, you know, I know better now, and next time I'm there, I'll take the extra effort to get there and just see it, right? Maybe share some video about it. There's Sunny Cottage, which is clearly a merchant's old house, and it says somewhere that I read somewhere that it is still a residence. Someone maybe still lives there, but it's also a heritage center, so I need to clarify that. But I didn't know anything about it. Now what I do know now is that if it is a merchant house, there's probably going to be tons of information about it because merchants had money, and the people with the money, they are the ones that control the history, the stories. So you're going to be able to find information about it if you want, and I'm not going to delve too deep into that because if the information's already out there, you can find it. I'm more interested in something else I didn't know anything about, the Hickey children. There was a landslide that claimed the lives of, I believe, 4 children, young children, from a single family whose house was at the base of this landslide. Kind of, you know, heart-wrenching. Don't know anything about it until I saw the landmark. So next time around, maybe I'll have more to say about it. That's the type of thing that I'd be most interested in. The ferry lady who used to take people from the middle of Harbour Breton to the other side before the causeway was built. These are the points of interest for me that I want to learn more about that I had no idea about. But I have the seeds of the knowledge planted because the town has markers around the town to indicate certain events. They've taken it upon themselves to let people like myself who are travelers learn a little bit more, and if you're eager to learn more, you can read up on things and find more information. So when I get back and have a better sort of foundational understanding of the town, I'm going to create another video because I'm definitely going back and I definitely want to share more information about this place because, as I said at the beginning, this may be my favorite place that I've ever experienced, ever visited in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And as I always say in the videos, I'm not finished with my travels just because I hit A, B, or C place, but of the places that I've been to, pretty confident in saying that Harbour Breton is my favorite.
I'm on the Galtus ferry. It's pretty loud. I'll try to fix this in post and cut out some of that background noise, but the boat was actually pulling, or the ferry was pulling out as I was trying to find a place to park, and they turned around and came back for me because they saw me.
No, wait. We're not just going to glaze over what I just said. The ferry left the dock and came back to get me because they saw me. I knew it was a passenger only ferry, so I knew I had to park my car, and I was looking for the place to park. It wasn't totally well marked. So I saw the ferry and I overshot it, and by the time I came back, I saw a guy coming up the hill in his car. I rolled down my window and I asked the guy, like, where am I supposed to park for the ferry? And he said, the ferry just pulled out. I'm like, oh, this is my one chance to get to Galtus. He said, if you go down there, if you flash your lights, they'll come back for you. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, they will. So I had nothing to lose. I was already there. I went down and flashed my lights. The ferry came back for me. The ferry came back for one person. I parked my car, grabbed my camera gear, ran down to the dock. They put up the gangway for me and I got on and nobody was mad. It seemed like whatever, something else for them to do, come back and pick me up. But the ferry came back for me. It was gone. It was pulled out and it came back for me.
I don't think this will happen in very many other places, but they got me on, and I really appreciate them for doing that. Thank you, Galtes Ferry people. On my way over to Galtes, and I can't believe I'm saying that. It's only a short ride. I think it's about 20 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll be there for a couple of hours and just see what the town is all about and see if I can learn a little bit about it. That's the town of Hermitage behind us. That's where we pull out from. And it's a passenger-only ferry, passenger and freight. So no cars, no passenger cars allowed. Hermitage is probably about 40 minutes from Harbour Breton. And you kind of just like backtrack up the Highway 360 and then you turn off for Hermitage, come back down, kind of like a V shape. Good morning.
I'm creating a couple of videos over this road trip that I'm on right now, and I find myself saying, like, over and over again, I thought I was giving myself enough time for everything that I'm trying to do right now, but I really wish I gave myself a little bit more time. Like, this is like a week-long road trip, but you know, Harbour Breton, mind blown, like completely not what I was expecting, and in the best possible way. Now here I am in the town of Galtes. I only got about 2 hours before the next ferry, and I kind of have to get back because I just didn't give myself enough time to do everything I wanted to do. Now, to be fair, I don't think I could stay here overnight. I think they do have the Galtes Inn, which isn't available until the spring through early fall, I think. So I don't think I would have a place to stay here. And there's not a lot, you know, if it got cold, it's not too bad right now, but if it did get cold, I don't know if there'd be a lot of places to go and just warm up. Although, so far, the few people that I met here seem super friendly, and I'm sure they wouldn't have a problem letting me come in to warm up if I needed it. But it's actually very calm. I wouldn't say mild. It's kind of mild. It's above 0 degrees right now, so it's not freezing. And yeah, I got a couple of hours to explore this place and just kind of see how big it is, see kind of where this boardwalk leads to, all that kind of stuff. So really, really excited. I just got off the ferry over there about 10 minutes ago. So I got about 2 more hours to just really explore and see what Galtes is all about. Streets aren't paved here. There's, I think, a few vehicles, like service vehicles, maybe fire truck, and maybe a handful of service vehicles in Galtes altogether. Lots of ATVs, quads, things like that to get around. And it looks like all the traffic that I've seen so far today were quads. I think maybe one side by side I saw as well. This is a drinking water station, it looks like, for the town. Check, check, check. Hey, check. So this is Galtes. I'm up kind of at one of the higher points in the town, on the side where the most of the residents live. There's a name on it. I didn't see it when I was walking around, but I know there's a name, so let's try to find that, and I'll put it on the bottom so you can see what the different sides of the town are actually called. Down below where the ferry actually docks, there's a couple of houses, there's a few businesses and the post office, and up behind me is basically houses, and there's a little park and a big trail that takes you across to the other side of this little peninsula here. You might know Galtis because there was, about this time last year, there was a vote to basically decide whether or not the residents were going to resettle, take government assistance and basically resettle from Galtis to wherever they wanted to go. This wasn't the first vote that they had, and it was actually a no that won. So the residents are still here, unless they want to go on their own, but they're not getting any government assistance if they do that. So that's kind of where we stand right now, and pretty expected that this won't be the last vote, but for now anyway, the residents are staying put. Galtis is interesting because Newfoundland's history has, you know, a major chapter that dealt with resettlement when Joey Smallwood was premier back, you know, in the earliest days of his premiership, when Canada basically took over Newfoundland, when Newfoundland joined Confederation. And a lot of communities, there was way more communities dotting the coastline than exist right now, and there's still quite a few. But there was a lot of communities on the south coast where Galtis is that were resettled to Galtis. Galtis actually was what was known as a growth center. And the population boomed back in the 60s and 70s, and it's been steady decline since the 90s. There was a fish plant closure, and of course with the cod moratorium just completely shutting down, the decline here has been steady. The vote that just took place, there was well under 100 eligible residents who could vote. I believe the number was in the high 70s, maybe early 80s. They needed was it a 70%, or it wasn't like a 90% majority that they needed to move, but they weren't able to convince 70% or however many it was supposed to be to actually resettle. So that's why people are still here. But this, as I said, this was a growth center in the initial wave of resettlement, and now it's experiencing its own, you know, call to resettle again. And a lot of the residents, I can understand it 100%, they don't want to leave. This is where they want to be. So, you know, it's an aging community, there's very few kids. It's, you know, this is just the nature of a town like this. And that's the major mode of transportation. I believe there's 4 children, the last I heard, 4 children in the school system here. There's not a lot of kids, there's a lot of, you know, aging residents, and they want to stay here, and that's, you know, that's something that I understand completely. For some of the younger residents who do want to take the government assistance and resettle, there probably will be another opportunity to do that soon enough. One of the issues with the town that a lot of the rest of the province is maybe aware of is the subsidy for the ferry system. It's a huge subsidy, and people break down the number for the resettlement package. I believe it was $270,000 per eligible resident, and the government figures that with the government subsidy and any other services that are provided, it will pay, the resettlement will pay for itself in about 10 years. So, you know, it's an expensive town to run for a population of about 100 people. So we'll see, time will tell what's going to happen to this place, but I'm just glad to be able to say that I came here while it was still a town, while it's still managed, and, you know, when it's one day abandoned like so many other Newfoundland communities, it's still going to be possible to get yourself here, and there will be, you know, remnants of this town for centuries to come, decades for sure. So I'll come back on an adventure one day, even if the town isn't a town. But I'm glad to be able to say that I was able to visit while it's still a town, because who knows how long that's going to be. Now, make no mistake about it, you can see a little bit of snow flying right now, but this is an absolutely beautiful day. I can't believe how lucky I am to be doing this in March, where you never know what you're going to get. But there's really very little wind. It's crisp, but it's not cold at all. It's definitely above zero. The sun is peeking out through those flurry clouds. Like, this is just, I mean, I couldn't ask for more. I got a big day of exploring today, even when I get back over to the other side on the ferry. I'm heading from Galtis over to Blorum. And Blorum, I believe, is, you know, the reason why I'm down here in the first place. Even though Harbour Breton kind of exploded my brain, I can't wait to get over and see Blorum. That's going to be a little easier than getting over here because it is connected by a road, and I don't think it's very far from here. But if I'm going to be doing all this exploring outdoors today, and I'm dealing with weather like this in mid-March in Newfoundland, I consider myself a pretty lucky guy right now. A couple of hours in Galtis, it was awesome. Time to get back on the ferry because I don't think the next one's coming for about 6 hours, and I got no food or anything with me, and there's not a whole lot of places to go to get a snack, or as far as I can tell, even a bathroom break, although people here that I bumped into were super friendly, and I'm sure that they would help me out if I needed it. But let's just get back on the ferry and not put anybody out. Thank you, Galtis. This was really awesome. And I'm heading over to Blorum next, but what an experience that was. I'm standing here right now in the town of Blorum for the first time in my life, and it is absolutely breathtaking. Back in 2003, 2004, I lived in Toronto and I was studying audio engineering, and I was getting close to completion, and I was thinking about what I wanted to do when I finished the course and who I'd want to work for, or if I was going to start my own thing or whatever. I started looking into recording studios in Newfoundland, and I stumbled upon the town of Blorum because Sim Savory from Sim and I had his studio here. This is where he's from, and I'm actually standing in Blorum right now, by the way. Just a little side note there. But Sim had a studio back then, and it was pretty famous, but I didn't know it because I was still pretty much a kid at that time. But I remember like looking into the town of Blorum, just kind of, I never knew about it, didn't know where it was on a map, didn't know much about it at all. So I started researching it, and then kind of ever since then became mildly obsessed with Blorum. And it took me 20 more years to get here, but I'm standing here right now in the town of Blorum for the first time in my life, and it is absolutely breathtaking. Again, I've been saying that a lot lately, but this place is, you know, there's a reason why I became obsessed with it, looking at pictures of it just from the internet. But actually standing here, like, the pictures never seem to do places justice. This is another one of those examples where it's even more beautiful than the pictures made it look to be. So talking about Sim Savory, I just brought him up talking about why I even learned about Blorum. Sim and I was the group Sim and I, right? Sim Savory from here in Blorum, and Bud from, can't remember which town it is, but it's somewhere down around the south coast as well. Super famous for the Lumber Song, Music and Friends. There's a bunch. I mean, they're a classic Newfoundland group. But this is Sim's hometown, right? Bud Davidge still going, as I said, still with Shanneyganock a lot, so you can catch him from time to time. Basically, I think every time I've seen Shanneyganock in the last 3 or 4 years, but join them for at least 1 or 2 songs.
Modern, I suppose that's the cause, 'cause Christmas is not like it was.
Small town, of course, like so many of these coastal communities that dot the whole island, really. About 350 people, I believe. It has a rich fishing history, so it's kind of like rode the waves of ups and downs over the centuries for, you know, that go along with the fishing industry. Hit really hard, of course, in 1992 when the cod moratorium took effect, and then in the early 2000s when people started talking about aquaculture. That is the coast of bays, Canagra Peninsula, Bay d'Espoir. The whole south coast, as far as I'm aware, is really benefiting from aquaculture. Now, I don't know enough about aquaculture to tell you anything one way or the other, but what I can say is when I was in Belorem, I could tell that there was something good happening. There was people everywhere. I'm not talking about like Times Square people everywhere, but for a town of 350 people in the middle of March on a okay day, but not a particularly nice day weather-wise, there was people all over the place. Sometimes there's like groups of people just sort of hanging around, maybe working on a boat or something. You can hear it in the background of some of my video here. People just doing work on their properties or whatever. There's people hanging around, just buddies that seem to be like just hanging around at lunchtime. There's people walking, driving, just all over the place. It was really, really cool to see because you don't always know what you're going to bump into in these little towns. Are people prospering? Are they doing well? In October, when I was on the Baie Verte Peninsula, when we went up to Le Sea, I kind of said the same thing. Like, there was new cars everywhere. There was, very well kept houses. And it's not like I'm judging communities by how well you keep your houses, but if you are renovating and buying new vehicles and things like that, you probably have some money. Really refreshing to see, because all you've been hearing in my lifetime was how fishermen, fisher people, fisher persons have been struggling so much. The ups and downs of the fishery has been pretty much on a down for the last 40 years, really, with some exceptions, here and there, but really nice to see in Belorem just human activity, people out doing stuff. I don't need to tell you too much about the beauty of the town itself. You can see that in the footage here. This was a remarkably beautiful town. There's a few different names for the region, as I mentioned just a moment ago. The Conagra Peninsula, there's Baie d'Espoir, which is like in the area but a little further north. Probably if you're in Belorem or Harbour Breton, you might consider it kind of far from you, but just generally, broadly speaking, it's in the same part of south central Newfoundland. Some of the landscape is very like Nordic, right? Fjords, they call it, I've seen it called fjord country. And if you go to like Western Brook Pond in Grossmorn, the fjords that you see there are the kind of like prototypical fjords if you know anything about them at all. What you probably envision with fjords is these scooping mountains that kind of go back into the water. In the south coast, in the Conagra Peninsula, Belorem, Harbour Breton, these places where what you're seeing are probably fjords, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about that. If you're watching this and you know what I'm talking about and they're not fjords, let me know, because I don't know. But it's really cool to see the landscape. It's beautiful. And Belorem is kind of like a town that's on the base of a fjord, if it is a fjord. So you can see from the footage, you don't need me to talk about it any more than I'm already talking about it. It is a beautiful town, and it's just majestic, and there's not much that needs to be said about it. Just watch. Last point I want to make here is kind of a long one because it's important. It's about road access to the region in general, Belorem specifically. So let me just talk about that a little bit here. So at first I didn't even know if a road actually came in here, if it was like a ferry-only community, because we're on the south coast, there's a lot of those. But there is a road that comes in, so when I found out there was a road, I was kind of concerned about, what kind of condition it would be in, but it was excellent. The whole way down from the Trans-Canada Highway. Highway 360 on a map, it looks pretty much north to south straight down, but just assume that it's going to still be windy because it's Newfoundland. But wow, it's actual straight roads in Newfoundland, I guess. Just have some peace of mind to know that if you do decide to come down this highway, the road is fantastic. It's beautiful. Where I am right now is a little bit blah, but the closer you get to Harbour Breton,
the landscape changes, and it is amazing. There's one hill heading into Belorme, actually. I had dreams, I wouldn't call them nightmares, but there were dreams that made me feel uneasy, where I'm in a vehicle driving up a hill and it gets steeper and steeper and I keep going up and up and I don't really ever get to the top. There was a hill like this heading into Belorme, and it was more of an optical illusion than anything, because you come down a hill when you see the hill in front of you. But what an amazing drive that was. But yeah, this highway is almost worth the trip down to Harbour Breton on its own. But Harbour Breton is definitely, and Belorme and Galtas and all these different places are definitely worth visiting. Anyway, don't just come and take the road and take it back out just for the sake of it.
Driving into Belorme is surprisingly smooth. The road was, for the most part, really good. Highway 360 is the main highway, takes you down all the way to Harbour Breton. You'll detour, I believe it's 361, not positive, and then you definitely take 363 once you get so far. That brings you right into Belorme.
So I just wanted to let you know, like, if you're hesitant to come down here because it's a remote highway, and it is, you don't have, as long as you know you can trust your vehicle, you're not going to have to worry too much about the road itself, because yeah, it's not perfect. There are areas where there are some potholes, and going into Belorme there was a couple of areas where it was a little bit rough, but for the most part, even going in there, it was smooth. It looked like the roads have been fairly recently done, and even the paint on the roads, it's wild to me, because you drive around St. John's this time of year, for whatever reason the paint never lasts through the winter, and I know there's more traffic on the roads and stuff, but like the paint on the roads here is perfectly visible. In St. John's, you gotta kind of guess where your lane is, literally, you know, pick your lane.
Like, I'm really surprised with how good of condition the roads were for the most part. There've been a few exceptions, like in Conn River, for example. Roads were really bad headed into Conn River, but I saw construction crews actually doing work, I think, on the roads. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of construction workers working on something. But the road's been really good. Don't let that be a barrier. I mean, it's still technically winter, and there was a big snowstorm about a week ago, but the roads were clear. They're damp because the snow's melting. It's +3, +4 degrees every day. But don't worry about the roads. Make your way down here because it's amazing. I wasn't able to spend a significant amount of time in St. Albans and Conn River and some of the other towns down that highway that I've never been to and I really wanted to visit. But I definitely wanted to at least carve out a little bit of time to go in and see these places. I don't know when the next time I'm going to be there is, even right now. I love the area, but it's just, you know, it's not easy to get there from Mount Pearl. But because I was in the area, I made a point I was going to visit these towns, even though the bulk of my trip was to be focused on Harbour Breton, Galtas, Belorme. These are the places that I had mapped out in my head that I wanted to, you know, carve out a significant time for. So the plan was, on the way down, to stop in either St. Albans or Conn River, and on the way out I'd stop into the other one. And the way it worked out was my brother suggested I stop into St. Albans first, because he's a teacher. He works with the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District, but his specific role is he basically works with distance education, and his classes are held virtually. He works with students all over the province, and one of his classes happens to be a group of students at St. Albans High School. I can't remember the name of the high school now. So he asked me if I'm going to be in the area, if I could bring some kind of a treat for the students, just say it's from Mr. Royal, and he never gets to see them in person, but he deals with them the way a teacher deals with students all the time. So we thought it'd be a nice little touch, right? He doesn't go down to St. Albans himself. So I said, yeah, sure, of course I'll do that. So I'm coming from Gander. There's Tim Hortons there. I said, I'll go Tim Hortons. I'll get a box of Timbits or donuts or something, and I'll bring it to the school, say it's from Mr. Royal. Everybody's happy. And I'm just about to buy the donuts. It dawned on me. Some guy in his 40s is about to walk into a high school that he has no connection with, no kids that go there, and he doesn't coach or nothing. So yeah, I got a box of donuts for some of the students here. Didn't seem like the best idea when I was in practice was thinking about how it was going to go down. So last minute I got in touch with my brother, and I'm like, look, I'm just about to get these donuts. Can you please contact a friend of yours at the school, the principal, somebody, and let them know that some strange man's about to walk in with a box of donuts and say these are for your kids. So he did. It was fine. He reached out to the principal, got in touch with him. But the principal told him that it was a Pro D day and they were actually going to shut down around noon. And there was no way I was going to make it there before 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock at the very earliest. It's just the way things worked out that day, my schedule. I never took into account that they might be closing early. So we scrapped the idea, but yeah, that's my St. Albans story. It's a cool town. I wanted to see it. It was definitely worth the detour off the highway. But if you're ever doing anything like this, even if it's like the kindest gesture and coming from a good place, make sure as a 40-something-year-old you're not walking into a high school with treats for kids unless someone's expecting you, okay? So if you are a student in Mr. Royal's class from the high school in St. Albans, and if maybe he didn't tell you this, just know that he tried to send a treat, something from Tim Hortons. Didn't work out, but I just wanted you to know that the thought was there, okay? I'm driving up Highway 360 right now. I left Harbour Breton a couple of hours ago and took my time. I stopped in St. Albans, first time popping in there before. Another pretty town. I had a great cup of coffee at a place called Bayside Cafe just outside of St. Albans. I'm not sure which town it was, but it might have been headed Bay d'Espoir, I'm not sure. But I'm back on the Bay d'Espoir Highway, Highway 360. The highway itself, this is my first time taking it. Well, my second time because I came down the other day, driving up, and I just wanted to say, like, I always thought this was a remote highway. There's not a lot, there's nothing between St. Albans and Trans-Canada Highway. Like, no rest stops, no gas stations, no towns, no nothing. Once you get down to St. Albans, even heading between St. Albans and Harbour Breton, you have Con River, a turn off to Con River. You have a turn off to like St. Jack's, Ballorem, a bunch of little communities over that way. But there's not that much down here at all. Harbour Breton, I say it before, I'll say it again, it's a gem. It's way bigger than I realized, and it makes sense to have a road to lead to that town because it's a major town. I had no idea. But the road itself, like I always thought, because it's so remote, because there's not a whole lot of communities down here, maybe it would be neglected and maybe it would be in pretty bad shape, especially at this time of year, right? It's mid-March. It's still, you know, technically and very literally winter. Winter doesn't actually change until the 21st, I believe, is the first day of spring. So like we're in winter. It's not the throes of winter. It's not as bad as, you know, January and February. But as you can see from the footage, like, there's snow on the ground. We did have a big snowstorm last week. A lot of the snow that's here is kind of remnants of that. It's not, you know, it's not the winter wonderland here where I am. Down a little further in, closer to Harbour Breton, I left early in the morning. There was some snow overnight. It looked beautiful. So I'll splice some footage of that in here as well so you can see. But, you know, I figured because of all of this, the roads were going to be treacherous, if not snow covered and icy, which I didn't think it would be because it's not freezing temperatures. It's, you know, pretty much at or above zero a little bit. So it's not like the road's going to be frozen and covered with snow, but the expansion and contraction of the pavement and the snow plows and just the general traffic, when the temperature hovers around freezing, it usually tears up pavement. At least that's my understanding. But this has been one of the smoothest roads that I can imagine. So the road condition is fantastic. The only complaints, 2 complaints that I have about the road, and it's not the road itself, it's not the driving quality or the pavement quality, it's the connectivity. If there is an issue, you are kind of out of luck. I have 0 reception, no cell service at all, let alone internet, Wi-Fi. And the other thing is, it's Saturday morning, I'm driving right now, and all I want for this long drive is to listen to the VOCM Irish Newfoundland show, and the reception is spotty at best right now. It was better towards Harbour Breton, and it'll get better in a little while, but I really, really want to listen to the Irish Newfoundland show, and I'm listening to static over like little snippets of Saltwater Joys or whatever song comes on. Saltwater Joys was on this morning, but I got interrupted by the static. So yeah, that's my only complaints, and that's, I don't know how to fix that. It has nothing to do with the quality of the roads. It's just like, be mindful of that. Bring some of your own music, or, you know, have a co-pilot with you to tell you jokes or something, because the radio's not going to work, the internet don't work.
Her
mother doesn't like the tarry sailor way. Hey, roll on board. But I roll all night and I roll all day, but I spend my money on Sally Brown. She wants her to marry the one-legged captain. Way, hey, roll on board. But I roll all night and I roll all day, but I spend my money on Sally Brown.
I just passed through Lewisport. I was going to stop for dinner at a fish and chips place, a restaurant, snack bar called Norma's. That was shut down, and it looks like it was actually shut down for quite a while. So shout out to Nerdy Newfie and Big D. You did a video. I didn't check when you did that video. I just saw it and it looked like the type of place I wanted to go, and I went and it's gone. And then I tried to find another option. I found a place on Google called Chelsea's, listed as open. It's on the little highway that takes you up to Twillingate, which is where I'm heading to next. That place was not boarded up, but they had like the garage doors down over the windows and stuff, and it certainly looked like that was shut down, even though Google says it's open right now. So if anybody's looking for fish and chips in the town of Lewisport, I have no recommendations for you because I couldn't find anything. At least the two places that popped up, number one being Norma's, which I came here for, number two being my alternate, Chelsea's. Doesn't look like those are options for you anymore. I visited Twillingate on the same road trip, and Twillingate is a very well-known tourist destination, but what I discovered in Twillingate was that the town is basically only a tourist destination. And I'm not knocking Twillingate, anybody watching from Twillingate, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I was looking for a place to eat and there was nothing open. All right, now guys, I don't know what's going on. I'm in Twillingate and I stopped at RJ restaurant where I went in the summer and had a fish and chips and it was delicious, closed for the season. I'm standing up outside of Annie's, which we wanted to try, but we chose RJ restaurant instead for whatever reason. They're closed, it looks like, for the season. I'm just like genuinely asking if you are from Twillingate or if you spend time in Twillingate and you come in the winter. I mean, it's mid-March right now. It's not tourism season by any means, but what would you suggest for people that come to Twillingate in an off season to eat? Like which places stay open? Genuine question. I think I saw Mary Brown's on the way in, but I can't remember for sure. And Robin's Donuts and places like that. So I might end up going and just getting a sandwich or something from Robin's. But if you are familiar, if you know, could you kindly leave a comment and like suggest a place? And you know, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon right now. It's possible that one or two of the places that I went to that's closed, maybe they're closed for service, maybe they're only open for supper, I don't know. So if you have any information to share about what you can do in Twillingate if you're hungry, please drop a comment so that anybody that stumbles onto this can find out for themselves. Thanks. And again, no offense, Twillingate, I don't mean anything bad by it, but I was really surprised to see that so many places that are, you know, kind of well-known, relatively well-known, are all seasonal with no real options in the winter months. Botwood is an incredibly underrated town in Newfoundland. Just basically out for a stroll in a small town, and I'm about to see a bunch of really cool stuff, and it's just something that, you know, as often as I say you gotta get out and see Newfoundland, a lot of the places that you go to, you can't just walk around and see stuff. A lot of the places require a vehicle. The sites are like natural wonders and they're spread out. And without a car, it's really hard to get around. But I started this video at a mural. There's 2 murals that are kind of one. And that's what Botwood's kind of known for. There's a few things, but one thing in particular is the murals that they have here. And I'm just gonna walk and show you a couple as I'm going. Now over here, off in the distance, there's one called the Water Nipper. This is actually the first one that was painted, sort of, I guess, first one commissioned by the Botwood Mural Art Society. So if there's roughly 20 murals right now, this one over here is the one that kick-started it all. It's the one that, it was the first one that started it all. That's what I'm trying to say here. Here's one. This is another one across the street. We'll walk past, you'll see it. Here's another mural. Let's take a look. One more mural here.
It's on the post office. See the Botwood post office sign? Oh, here's the sign here. Yeah, another one by Charlie Johnston. I could tell it was just by looking at it. Just has that same style. It's beautiful. I really enjoy this one. But it has, you know, it's on the post office, so it reflects mail. I'm staying at what's called the Exploits Hotel or something. Anyways, the hotel in town I'm staying there. There's a mural on the side of that I'll show you as well. So where I started, I was going for a walk. Like I said, it's a mid-March, nice day. It's no wind at all. It's probably 3 or 4 degrees. It's not warm, but it's not cold. And like I said, you're just walking around in a town like Botwood. It's just a walkable community with the murals that are really nice. So I'm coming up on another one right now. I believe it's from the same artist because it kind of looks the same. Hey, how are you doing? So this is Dr. Toomey. He's somewhat of a legend in this town, it seems. He's the namesake for the hospital here. This is one of the ones by Charlie Johnston. It's called The Pulse of the Community. And we have the M is for Murals book by, I think it's Trudy or Tracy Stuckless, Trudy Stuckless. She's involved with the Mural Arts Society here in Botwood still, but this is how I found out about the murals. There's a book that introduced all of the murals a couple of years ago, and the book was current, like the cache of murals was current at the time, but they added a couple more since that book came out. But this Charlie Johnston guy's in the book, and one of the stories is about how he paints with both hands, so I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm not going to take you on a tour of the complete collection of murals. I'm hoping that I can sort of plant the seed and entice you to come out and see it for yourself. I'm not an expert on the paintings. I'm not qualified to take you on a proper tour, but there actually is a Botwood Mural Arts Society. They are qualified to take you on a tour, and they offer tours, at least in the standard tourism season. I don't know how severe winters get in Botwood, but I can tell you right now, it doesn't feel very severe at all. But it is mid-March, but there's not a breath of wind. It's crisp, but it's not cold. So, you know, I don't know, maybe winters aren't as bad in Botwood as they are in St. John's, but it's a beautiful little town. And as you can notice me, I'm walking. This isn't weird. Like, I think this is a very walkable town. And the murals are kind of like the calling card for the town right now, but the way that they're laid out, you can walk around and catch all of them. There's a couple that are like a little bit outside of the main street. I'm not sure what the street's called. I'll have to find, well, I'm gonna walk up on a street sign in a moment and I'll let you know what the actual street is called. Maybe Church Street? Anyway, most of the murals are along the strip that I'm walking right now, but there are a few that are sort of dispersed in a few different areas. But it's not a huge town. It's not a hard thing to get around and see all of them in any case. But if you have a vehicle, you can see a few more. But that's sort of the thing. Like, this is a beautiful little Newfoundland town. Beautiful naturally, but also beautiful because of the murals. And the thing that's different about this town compared to like so many other touristy towns is that you can get out and walk around and keep yourself occupied. You can, whether it's looking for the murals or just having a town that you can get out and walk in. It's not that common around Newfoundland, especially in the wintertime. Well, Botwood has a really interesting history. You know, it's one of those communities in Newfoundland that was involved with the fishery for sure, but it isn't a standard, typical fishing town. There was a lot of lumber, and it was involved with, like, you know, pulp and paper, kind of providing lumber, and lumber for other resources as well, but it was a lumber community. Also has a very important role to play in aviation in Newfoundland's history, but in the world as well. Gander's better known as a site for aviation because it has the big airport. Well, it's not that big anymore, actually, but there's a bunch of notable transatlantic flights that took off from Botwood. Botwood's interesting because it is, I mean, for a Newfoundland town, it is a small town, but for a Newfoundland town, it's definitely sizable. There's businesses that are operating, whereas, you know, you go to some towns and there's literally nowhere to go to eat, and the grocery store's in the next town over or whatever. But this place has enough services to satisfy the town itself, and it's somewhat of a service center. Springdale is just down the road, and then a little bit, or sorry, not Springdale, Bishop's Falls, and then Grand Falls, Windsor is just a little further down again, and that's, you know, definitely one of the major centers for all of central Newfoundland. But this place sustains itself, so it's got some kind of an economy here. But Botwood is one of the communities that's talked about for the all the green hydrogen and the wind farms and everything. You know, people talk about Stephenville mostly because the biggest one seems to be there, but one of the other ones that's being planned right now is actually gonna set up potentially here in Botwood. So like, whether you have a strong opinion on wind farms or not, you know, knowing that Botwood is being sort of pinned as one of the home bases for one of these companies that's potentially going to set up, going through the whole environmental assessment process and everything right now. But this community, starting from what seems to be, you know, relatively healthy economically speaking, there's a chance for it to really take hold. It's been up and down over the years, over, you know, a number of different industries, aviation, logging, and like just general forestry. Wasn't like a super strong fishing history here like there was in most communities around Newfoundland, but there's definitely some history with fishing here. Of course, it is on the water, but this potential for the wind farms and green hydrogen and all that is kind of exciting. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm gonna be watching that fairly closely. So, you know, come out and see this. It's a cute town. You know, if you're heading out anywhere around central Newfoundland, come see the town anyway. But the murals are the big fat cherry on top that really make a trip to Botwood. It gives you a target, something to do while you're here specifically. I come here every chance I get. This is probably my 4th time passing through in the past 2 or 3 years. I've never been here before that, but I like to come through and see a town that kind of feels like Newfoundland and kind of doesn't, in the best possible way. This is Leading Tickles, another beautiful town. It's about, I think, 45 minutes north of Botwood, if you know where Botwood is. Botwood's central Newfoundland, closer to Grand Falls, but kind of in between Gander and Grand Falls, Windsor. I got a cousin by marriage, Sandy, from Leading Tickles, so I wanted to come up and visit the place just to see it, see where she's from, and I've been hearing for years how beautiful of a spot it actually is. So that's why I'm here. Well, one of the reasons why I'm here. But I'm in Leading Tickles because I wanted to see it. This is a specific place that I had on my list for a long time to come visit. Beautiful day, not a breath of wind. The sun is sort of peeking up behind the clouds over behind me. I'm really glad that I came up and saw this beautiful little town. So after Leading Tickles, it was pretty much straight back to Mount Pearl. I stopped for gas in Whitburn or Goobies, I can't remember where, but that was it. Mom had set up a baby shower for me, but for the baby. So I had to get home for that, and I think that started at 3 o'clock. That was my priority. After 5 days, like, I was pretty much exhausted. I didn't stop. I slept for probably 5 hours a day or a night for that whole stretch, and I was just go, 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 which I have zero regrets, and I recommend to everybody to do the same. If you don't have much time or you don't have the energy, obviously you can't do 5,000 kilometers up and down and all around straight through central Newfoundland and eastern Newfoundland. But these places, don't neglect getting to Harbour Breton. Don't neglect getting to Galtis, Bellorum. I mean, even to a lesser extent, I could say the same about Bonavista and Twillingate and these places that a lot of people already go to quite often. Go and take advantage of this place. It's so incredible. But back to Mount Pearl, in any case, after all of that, to spend the afternoon with family and just sort of like think about then what's happening right now. It was a very, very exciting conclusion to the trip. And yeah, if you can get out, whether it's winter, summer, spring, fall, get out and see Newfoundland. I always say that, but man, oh man, 5,000 kilometers, I still don't feel like I even scratched the surface. But I'm going to remember this trip for the rest of my life. Looking forward to the next one. this trip we got planned for this summer is going to probably top that one if I have anything to say about it. So stay tuned. Obviously, it's going to be a while before those videos start coming out, but I'll keep you entertained as best as I can over the summer with stories about Newfoundland, people, places, Newfoundland in general, all that. All right, be good.